What is going on, everyone? This is Zach back here with another episode of Clutch Crew Sports. And here on today's episode, we're going to talk all about the Jon Gruden Raiders situation. So that happened last week, but we're going to talk about the fallout of that and our reaction to that whole story. We're going to talk about the lockboard, which much better week than the past couple weeks have been for the lockboard in general, and had some pretty high scores with some people today. And then after that, NBA season is coming back into swing. So we're going to give our NBA predictions for Western Conference, Eastern Conference finals, as well as the finals and MVP. So those are the three topics on doc for today. And man, can I just say, Duval? All right. Sorry if I blew anybody's eardrums out there. But Eric,
we just lost we just lost a bunch of viewers after that.
Oh man!
All right, now let me introduce you to the rest of the crew.
Well, this is the thing, man. You know, when you're a fan of a team that lost 20 games in a row and finally won, like, you can't help but feel some excitement. I wasn't going to do a Duval, but I was like close to that level of excitement. So, yeah, this is Eric, your ranting co-host, by the way. Obviously, no rants from me this episode since the Jags managed to finally get it done. I'm so glad we're not going to break that record. Like, thank you, Jesus. So had a great day today watching football, hanging out with Zach and our friend Alan, and playing Fall Guys with Connor. Like, been an awesome day. Now we're wrapping up with the podcast here. So hope you guys enjoy the episode, man.
And what's going on, guys? Connor, the co-host with the most, and I can't have any reactions to my team yet because they haven't played yet. So, I guess we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, they get the win. I mean, I will say though, in reference to Eric and his new slide, I might be getting on the Chick-fil-A train because every time the Hurricanes win at home this year, you get a free chicken sandwich at Chick-fil-A. So, I'm getting on the Chick-fil-A train this year.
Susan, we're moving to North Carolina and getting Hurricanes tickets.
And what's up, guys? It's Nate here. Had a pretty tough weekend with between the Gators and the Pats game that just wrapped up. Not a great weekend for my teams, but a lot of good stuff to talk about, though. So looking forward to that at least.
Yeah, Nate, man, I was almost right there with you. If Miami had won that game, USF had led the entire game, lost by 1 point. You know, I'm a Tennessee Volunteers fan. We know the fiasco of that game. So I was fully prepared to have the similar weekend as you with the UF, UCF, and New England losses. Oh, man. It's sports.
Well, that's why I was like, I'm hoping that I was like, I'm going to be in a similar pit if the Steelers lose, because, like, I know the UNC won, but Appalachian State, like, they got blown out on Tuesday, and I was like, what in the world happened here? Like,
yeah, I didn't expect that.
Wins in football for Eric and I have been few and far between the past couple of years, so I've forgotten how it feels like to win, and it's pretty good, I must say. But anyways, we're going to talk about total change of subject here, from the excitement of the Jaguars to just what happened in the NFL with the Raiders and Jon Gruden. This, basically we knew about one racist email, I think, that he sent prior to last week's game against the Bears. And then he still coached in that game, which, a lot of people were like kind of questioning, like, hey, like, why is he still the coach for this game? Like, he's not being suspended for anything. He's not, it was just felt really weird. Like, the locker room must have been weird, and then later in the week, all the other emails come out. I guess, I haven't actually read really the emails. I don't know if they've published them and exactly said what's in them specifically, but the titles for them are all racist, sexist, homophobic, like just all of these bad things going on in these emails. And I can't say I'm that surprised by it, to be like, if this was going to happen to anybody, Jon Gruden was pretty high on my list of guesses on who it might be. Just, he just seems like could be that kind of guy. So what's happened since then, obviously, is he resigned, they call it resigned, but if he didn't resign, he would have had to been let go anyways. So he's left the team, and they're going on to an interim, and there's so many questions right now between this. It's totally screwed up their season. I mean, we were talking about how good this team looked the first couple of weeks. They upset Baltimore in week 1 at home. They had a good record. They had some good momentum going, and then they had a couple losses. They lost to the Bears in that game that he coached in. They won this week against the Broncos, their division rival. So maybe things are going back up for them, but just really, really crazy circumstances. And I guess I want to start with Nate first on this. Nate, I'll just ask you what your reaction to this whole story was, what you thought of it, and what you think is going to be next for the Raiders.
Yeah, so definitely a crazy story. I saw that headline last week. Like you said, I'm not super surprised that, out of all the coaches, it was Jon Gruden. The one thing I will say about the whole situation, I haven't read, obviously, I haven't read exactly like all of the emails, and I know it was like the Washington executives were, it was like, I think from his time in Washington, a lot of those guys were like implicated. It was like a different investigation, but I wouldn't be surprised if, you told me that half the NFL, coaches and executives kind of were acting the same way that Gruden was as far as like the content of the emails and all that stuff. But I am surprised that he put it in a company work like email. I don't know how people like that think they can, are safe, like safe to say things like that on an email that can be, traced back pretty easily. So that was surprising to me whenever something like that happens with a high profile person like that. But going forward, honestly, it's an interesting spot for the Raiders because I'm not saying they're going to be better off immediately without him. Like, he wasn't a bad coach, but I also, when he came back a few years ago to coach in the NFL, I was a little bit surprised by the move. I mean, I don't think he really has that much, sort of like innovation or anything really to add, I guess. Like, he's definitely a solid coach. He knows what he's doing. He's been around for a long time, but I don't think it will be that difficult. I might be totally wrong, but I don't think it'll be that difficult for the Raiders to get a replacement. I see some of your suggestions down there on the bottom of the corner of the slide. I don't know if we're going to get into that more later in the episode, but there's definitely a lot of, I think, young, up-and-coming coaches that could come in and take this roster with Derek Carr and Josh Jacobs and some of these, like, they do have a lot of talent there. I think with a young, innovative head coach, they could definitely challenge for the division year in and year out. So I'm not surprised they came back. I'm not surprised they won today. I didn't really expect that to blow up the team or anything. Just kind of like a crazy situation to have happen right in the middle of a season like that.
Yeah, Eric, I'll ask you this too. I'll ask you a few things. Like, one, do you think do you agree with their move, I should say, do you agree with the Buccaneers move to remove him from the Ring of Honor? And then also, do you think, not just for this season, but long term, are the Raiders going to go up or down after this Gruden firing?
Yeah, I do agree that Tampa should have taken him out of the Ring of Honor. I mean, when this whole thing first came out, I heard about, the one email back from like 2011, and I heard what he said in it, and it wasn't good. But at the same time, I didn't think, like, people were freaking out and like, so how come he's not suspended or how come he's not fired? And and to me, like, you shouldn't be fired from like one thing from 10 years ago like that. But then when all this other stuff came out and it was a repeated offense, like, he just said so many different things, and it was a repeated pattern. Like, I guess when it first happened, when in 2011 was during the lockout, and he was frustrated with like why the lockout was still happening, and so that's I felt like more so that's why he said what he said about the particular individual. I didn't necessarily think it was just like strictly that he was being racist and attacking him. I thought it was more so he was just insulting him because he was frustrated with him for not helping speed up the process of ending the lockout. But then when all these other things came out and all these like sexist things he said and racist things he said and homophobic things he said, that's why I was like, okay, man, like this is obviously a pattern. This isn't just like one instance where you were frustrated. This is something you do on a repeated basis. And so I understand why Tampa chose to do it, even though he, had a lot of success with them. I can understand why they did it. And I mean, as for going forward, it's hard to tell. I mean, I agree with Nate that I think, in the later seasons, especially depending on who they're able to get at coach, in the future, I definitely think they have potential to be, a good team over the next few years. But as for this current season, I just don't know. I mean, they did get the win today over Denver, but I don't know if they're going to be able to keep it up. I mean, obviously they had that horrible loss against Chicago, and Gruden's last game, there was obviously the big distraction and everything. And I thought Denver was going to win just because I thought the distraction would still be an issue, but they did get the win. But overall, I just don't know if I see them having a ton of success going forward. They're still or for this season, they're still in a pretty hard division. They've got a lot going against them, but definitely a crazy scenario. Definitely gets the distraction off of Urban Meyer too.
Oh, for sure. That right after the Urban Meyer thing had its height of discussion, this comes out. So Connor, I just want to go to you. I know I'm like putting everybody on the spot with these questions, but but for you, where do you think like where would you rank this as in like recent NFL history, like scandals and stuff? Because do you think there's going to be any change out of this? Is this, do you think, going to like open up eyes to people and be like, all right, like, is this going to be a trend where like you think we see, Gruden's not the only one that's going to, receive some discipline from this, and you think others might be involved? Or is this just going to, do you think that this Jon Gruden thing is going to be totally isolated and just, in a few weeks it'll be old news? What do you think?
Well, I definitely think it's going to open up some eyes in the NFL because, I mean, they were already adopting the whole, like, they're still allowing players to wear messages on the back of their helmet. Like, especially during, the pandemic, they were really doing all this advocating for social justice. And during the election last year, like, they were already starting to get on this platform. So I think it'll really make them, really, I don't know, look more into some of the other things that some of the coaches are doing. I'm not saying that other coaches are doing it, but, because, in my personal opinion, I've always thought like, because, you guys were saying that you weren't surprised about it. I guess I was a little surprised about it just because, I mean, in my opinion, it'd be kind of hard to be a coach in the NFL and be racist, considering that like, 70% of your players are African American. So, I mean, I'm sure, maybe some people are like deep down, but it's just like, it's just something that you don't do. It's kind of like when they were saying how, like with the Mason Rudolph Myles Garrett incident where like, Myles Garrett claimed he called him the N-word and calling Mason Rudolph racist. I'm like, you do realize like his entire offensive line is like African American. So like, do you really think they'd be coming to his support and, supporting him if he was racist? Cause I mean, that stuff comes out. Like it wouldn't have just then come out. So, but yeah, I think it'll make them look more closely at some of these coaches and it'll be more in the spotlight. I don't think it's just going to go away, especially given how high profile of a coach he was. I mean, if this was like, like who, I can't remember his name, but like the new head coach of the Texans or like, the new head coach of, there's another team I'm forgetting that like got a new head
Eagles,
coach.
Nick
Yeah,
Sirianni.
Right.
Yeah.
Like some of these coaches that no one's heard about. Right. Someone's on the field in the Steelers game, but if someone, it's not one of these head coaches that no one knows. Like Jon Gruden's a big name in the NFL, and for it to happen to him, it's everyone's like, whoa, okay, like no one's immune to this. So And I mean, and back to, I think also touching on Nate's point about like, why would he put this in like a work sort of email? In my opinion, I think it's because, at that time he wasn't coaching in the NFL anymore. And I don't think he ever expected to come back to the NFL. Like, I think the Raiders just made him like the ultimate deal to come back. And he was never thinking about coming back and coaching. So he probably just didn't worry about it. He thought, oh, I can do this and it's never going to come back to me. Like, I'm all I'm doing is commentating. Like, this is never going to come up. Like, blah 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 blah. So, I mean, because if he was still a coach in the NFL, or if he was still like, if he had just been fired like 1 year prior and was looking for a job, I don't think he would have been necessarily that. I don't know what the like negligent or like he wouldn't have made that sort of mistake. So it's very interesting, and like I said, for the future of the Raiders. Who knows where they're going to go. I think it really hurts their chances. I know they're still technically, I think they're still in second place in the division, but I mean, the Chargers are better than them, and I see the Chiefs getting back over them at some point. Like, it's going to be tough for them to continue on without him, just because losing your coach mid-season is just, now you have to start over, basically. I mean, there's still a little bit of what's in place there, but it's starting over. So, yeah, very, very interesting shakeup. And also, last thing I know this has been a very somber subject, lighten the mood. I saw Allison Schmidt, a very well-known U.S. Olympic swimmer from Baltimore, Maryland, was waving a terrible towel at the start of this game. So I don't know what all her friends in Baltimore think about that, but
wow, okay.
Raider.
But yeah,
there's always that one person though from like Chicago, like born in Chicago, and they're like somehow a Packers fan. Like, what? Looking at you, Kyle.
Oh.
Oh.
All right.
All right. So yeah, I think we discussed the Raiders situation, hit a bunch of different angles, but yeah, definitely big news in the NFL, and something that we felt like we had to talk about on this episode once we knew the full scope of it. So moving on now, we're going to go ahead and look forward at next week's game schedule and do as we always do and pick out 3 games that we think are important for one reason or another, usually with good teams involved. So we have 3 games that we're going to give predictions on. I will go ahead and start with the first one. Kansas City Chiefs at the Tennessee Titans, a rematch from a couple years ago, AFC Championship game. This game is going to be in Tennessee, and the Chiefs have been really underwhelming this year. I mean, their record, I think is like around 500, and they just haven't looked the same as they have early in the season. Like, you would have expected a team like the Chiefs, other than their offensive line, a lot of continuity with them. Same coach, same quarterback, same weapons, a lot of the same defense. A lot of things stayed the same with Kansas City, and they've, had two or three really good years now. And this year it's, surprising to say that they're, more looking average. And then you have the Titans on the other side. We still don't know how their result Monday night's going to go. So, things could totally change. If the Titans have a shocking upset win against the Bills, maybe that, makes them more likely to win this game. But head to head, Chiefs and Titans, I mean, the Chiefs, they're just way more talented. I mean, I could see Derrick Henry just completely taking over this game because the Chiefs defense is bad, but I just still think, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, like, I'm just gonna pick them to win it. I think Tennessee's defense, that's the problem, is like, if Tennessee had a better defense, I would say maybe they'd have a shot, but the fact that their defense has, been really bad at the start of the season, no improvements from last year with this defense. I'm going to go with the Chiefs, and to give a score prediction like Eric always does, and now I'm going to be adopting that.
Eric's created a trend now.
Yeah, I will say Chiefs run up the score 38, Titans 24, 38-24 Chiefs. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Chiefs also. It seems like in more of the games where the Chiefs have struggled and everything like that, it's been against teams with better defenses. But Tennessee's defense has not been good this year. And I mean, obviously, neither of these teams' defenses have been good, but I just think Kansas City's offense outweighs Tennessee's offense in this. And I'm going to go with a shootout. I'm going to go with a similar score, but instead of 38-24 like Zach did, I'm going to go 38-34. I think it'll be close and high scoring, but I just think the Chiefs are going to be a little bit too much.
All right, what
Yes.
about you, Connor?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you guys. I'm going to have to go with the Chiefs. Like Eric said, it's just the Chiefs or the Titans defense to me is just too bad. Like, I know, and I think really to Eric's point about the defenses they've struggled with, it's maybe not so much teams that have had better defenses, but teams that have really good pass rushes. Like, even today, I mean, in the end, they ended up winning like 31-13, but they struggled with the Washington football team early on. Like, Chase Young and Montez Sweat were getting to Patrick Mahomes. Like, they were getting pressure on the quarterback. And so I think that's more so the teams because, the rest of Washington's defense is supposed to be good, but they haven't been really that good this year. So, and the Titans, I mean, they tried to upgrade that pass rush in the offseason, but I mean, Bud Dupree's been a disappointment, just like how I expected him to be. Thank you, Tennessee, for overpaying on him because, I know the Steelers probably would have tried to do that if they didn't do it first. So, but yeah, the Chiefs offense, like you guys said, I mean, even like Darrell Williams today, I mean, is that his first name? They've had so many D Williamses in their history at running back, but
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Daryl.
yeah,
Williams.
like I mean, he even looked really good today in place of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So, yeah, I definitely would have to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. I would say probably, like Eric, another shootout. I'd probably say like 42-35 touchdown win.
All right, Nate, give us your thoughts on the game and your prediction. Are you going to be the only one taking the Titans?
I'm not. I think, even though they haven't looked quite like the super dominant Chiefs we've seen the past couple seasons, I do think that they're a better roster overall than the Titans right now. So I've got to go with them this week, or this coming up week. I just think there's still too much firepower there, and the Titans have really yet to show me that they're much more than Derrick Henry carrying them so far this season. So for that reason, I'm gonna go with the Chiefs. I think I'm gonna have the Chiefs 35, Titans 21. I don't see them keeping pace with the Chiefs this week.
All right, there you have it, guys. That's our preview for the Chiefs and Titans. And Connor, go ahead and let us know about this next matchup we have starred.
Yeah, so who would have thought at the beginning of the season that this would be, more of a big-time AFC North matchup? We had the Bengals traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The Ravens, they're looking like the class of the AFC North this year. The Browns have been having some injury problems. Like I know Nick Chubb was hurt today. Kareem Hunt went down with a pretty devastating injury, it looked like. And Baker Mayfield just hasn't looked as good as I think some people thought he was going to. But the Ravens, I mean, Lamar Jackson, he's starting to try and put together another MVP season. The Ravens, they did lose their streak of games in a row with 100 yards rushing last week. So they didn't take the Steelers record away. They only tied it. So haha, Baltimore. But they still have I think, who was it? I was watching the game a little bit. I can't remember who was commentating, but like Baltimore, they said like Baltimore knows who they are. Like they're going to run the ball. They're going to stick to it no matter who's back there. I mean, like Devontae Freeman, Le'Veon Bell, and Latavius Murray all had touchdowns in that game. I think Lamar Jackson only threw for like 170 yards. So if they can get that going, then they're pretty much unstoppable. But the Bengals, they've been very surprising this year. They threw a whooping on the Lions this week. I know that's not super impressive considering it's the Lions, but Joe Burrow has looked solid. He looks exactly like he did when he was on pace for Offensive Rookie of the Year last year. Joe Mixon's had a better season. And really just that Joe Burrow has started to really develop chemistry with Jamar Chase, and they're looking very deadly. And I think probably the biggest underrated thing about the Bengals they kind of remind me of the Cowboys in this sense, where like their defense has gotten a lot better. It may still not be one of like, on the level of some teams like, Tampa Bay or the Rams, or, well, I shouldn't say the Rams because they've been pretty bad this year too, like the Panthers or someone like that, or Buffalo. They're not on that level yet, but they're kind of, getting there. So I think it'll be a close game, but I'm going to have to go with the Ravens. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt being at home. I do think the Bengals could probably steal the game later in the season when the Bengals are at home. But with the Ravens at home, I'm going to have to say Ravens win it probably 28-24. Zach, Eric, what about you?
Yeah, if the Ravens hadn't just destroyed the Chargers, I think I would have picked the Bengals, but like the Ravens have had a lot of close calls this season in some of their wins, but they looked pretty dominant today. And even though Cincinnati's been doing really good, I just have trouble picking against Baltimore here. I do agree with Connor though that I do think it's going to be close. And in my opinion, out of all the NFL games going on next week, this game has the most appeal to watch. If it's on my local TV here, I'm definitely going to watch it. So definitely excited about this game. But given the edge of the Ravens, I was actually thinking a very similar score to Connor. I'll change it slightly. No, I'll stick with what I was going to do. I was going to do Ravens 27, Bengals 24. So when Connor said 28-24, I was like, oh my gosh, Connor, you took the words out of my mouth on that one.
All right, I will give my analysis into the game. So, you talked about Baltimore's running, Joe Burrow's looking great. I'm going to pick the Ravens to win. I'm going to say 26-21 Baltimore. I think Justin Tucker, best kicker in the league. That's a serious weapon. Like, we don't talk about like special teams a bunch, but when you have a kicker like him on your team, like it's a real weapon. Like I was seeing a tweet from somebody saying how many teams would give up their first round pick for Justin Tucker. Like if you stop and think about it, like I think there might actually be more than you might think. Like whatever teams are contenders this year, like a team like Tampa, for instance, I think Tampa would give up a first round pick for him. Obviously, a team like the Jets and the Jags aren't going to do that, but
I think it just depends on how good your kicker is, right? Like I know someone, like the Chiefs wouldn't because like Harrison Butker has always been solid, but I mean, yeah, someone like, I don't even know who the Titans have a kicker, but like, I wouldn't call them a contender either, really. But I mean, like I could use the Browns as an example. I don't even know who their kicker is. Like, they might do something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, because we've seen, last week was really bad for kickers too. So it was like, a lot of kickers have been struggling. So that's a weapon that a lot of us don't really think about or talk about. But I wanted to bring him up. Justin Tucker will make his field goals, and he will be the reason why the Ravens beat the Bengals. Nate, what about you?
Yeah, so I think the Ravens will beat the Bengals as well. I do think Justin Tucker will be a big part of that. I think an even bigger part will be obviously Lamar Jackson. I don't like to be one to buy into like the player the media is hyping up at the present time, but he is on a roll right now. I think the way he's passing, rushing the ball, he's really looking the best I think that he's looked in his career. And I think that the Bengals are turning things around there, but I don't think that they've got what it takes to keep up with the offense he's going to put up in this game. So I'm going to go with not a super high scoring game, but I think it could be try not to copy all your guys' scores, but I could see 24 Baltimore, 17 Cincinnati.
All right, and then Nate, can you also give us your preview for the last game of the week?
Yeah, so this one a little bit interesting. I don't think it's quite as great of a matchup as the other two, but it is an interesting, possibly the most interesting storyline of the week. We've got the Detroit and LA Rams matchup. Jared Goff coming back to LA as a member of the Lions, and Matt Stafford's playing his old team as a member of the Rams. Kind of wild how this game was already on the schedule and just worked out that way. I think as far as the actual matchup goes, I would be surprised if it is a close game. I just think that the Lions have been more competitive than I expected them to be this year, but they have dropped some close games versus the Vikings and some other not so close losses. So I think the Rams are just overall in better shape right now. That defense, is very strong as always, and Cooper Kupp has had a crazy good connection with Jared Goff. He had another 2 touchdowns today. I think he's either leading the league in receiving or he's right up there. I think there's just too many weapons for Detroit to handle on defense. That's never really been their strong suit anyways, and I don't think their offense, on the other hand, has enough to really make a dent against this LA defense. So be interesting to see the pregame response to Jared Goff there. But beyond that, I think I'm going to go Rams 30. I'm going to go Rams 35, Lions 17. I think it's going to be a pretty easy day for LA.
Eric, what about you?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I forgot I muted myself. I was like,
Oh,
you cut me off. I'm like, oh, duh. my bad on the awkward silence there for a second. Yeah, I think the Rams are going to win this game pretty easily. Obviously, Goff and Stafford both playing for their former teams creates a interesting storyline, but I just don't think it's going to be that interesting of a game. I'm going to go Rams 38, Lions 10. And then I'll go pass the torch over to Zach.
all right. Thank you for passing the torch. I won't let it down.
You can have a talking pillow now.
The speaking ball is in your corner.
Yeah.
See, you guys are taking this. You guys are looking at this too much on paper. You're looking too much at the stats. You're looking too much at how much more talent the Rams have than the Lions. But what you're not taking into mind, what you're not taking into mind is that, Matt Stafford, he wanted the trade. He wanted to leave Detroit. He was happy to go to the Rams. Jared Goff feels wronged by the Rams. He's fighting for his life with the Lions right now. He's not won a single game with the Lions. His coach publicly said today he needs to step it up and play better. He's facing enormous pressure. His career is on the line. He's playing at the stadium of the team that drafted him, the coach that gave up on him, the coach that, this offseason was like, yeah, he couldn't even do. He was just making fun of him, basically saying how much better Stafford was than him. The motivation is serious on the Lions. They're desperate for a win. They've been clawing like lions for a win. They had a horrific loss today to the Bengals. They are facing humiliation. Everything is going wrong for the Lions. I've got the Rams winning the game, but it's going to be close.
I was like, this is all going to lead. See, I thought you were going to do something like, bring all that build up and then still say the Rams were going to blow them out. Like, that's what I was waiting for.
It's going to be close, but the Rams are going to win this game 31-30 Rams. Last second, Matthew Stafford brings them down for a game-winning field goal drive. Rams win 31-30. Connor, you can close us out on this discussion on Rams and Lions.
Yeah, no, it's going to be Rams 38-13. This game is not even going to be close.
I was waiting for Connor to do that.
I thought Connor was going to try and copy me. Like, here you see Matt Stafford, the former Lion. He feels wronged by his team.
People, they gave up on him. And
Oh, God.
He wants to show it to him. Show what they're missing. Oh, okay. All right. I had to make that kind of entertaining because, I figured you guys were all going to say what you did. So I was like, let me build some drama to this matchup. And Yeah, but I'm
honestly,
genuine.
that could go down as a all-time great Clutch Crew Sports segment right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I must say, I think it was like, Zach with the thing and then me just with the blowout win for the Rams.
Disagree.
Yeah, this is gonna be interesting to see what happens. I'm definitely gonna be tuned in just for the storyline alone. If the Rams end up blowing them out, I'm not gonna watch the game.
I will say that if it is like a close game, then you're gonna have something to at least come back to the podcast and be like, I told you so. Like I told you it was gonna be close.
Hey, I might go super risking and nab the Lions as 5-point lockboard picks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You could do that.
We'll see. I did pick the Rams to win here, so I'm not putting myself that far on an island, but
right. some people do that. I know kind of pick on Nate here, the fact that he in our weekly picks he picked the Cowboys to win, but in the lockboard he took the Patriots, so
Oh,
it's got to be. There's always some I've done that a couple times too, where I'm like, because the way we do this usually is like most of the time we make our picks and then the lockboard happens like afterwards. So it's like, you can't help but see, in these games who picks who. But it's like, if there's some strategy in that. Like, Nate's New England pick, that was further down his list. It wasn't a top 3 lockboard pick for him, but it was like, if it happens, it happens, But
I won't be mad, especially for him, being a Patriots fan. It's like
that's all that makes sense for him there. But all right, guys, speaking about the lockboard, let me go ahead and give the standings review to that and tell you guys how the current week did, how the new total standings look. So myself, I was the leader for this week with 8 points. So pretty impressive week from my lockboard picks, getting 8 points. Eric, who was in first place heading into the week, has 3 points from this week. Connor got 2 points, so he got a 2-pointer correct and got 2 points. Nate managed to get 5 points. So we all got points this week. So, when we go to the table, everybody's got 1 green at least to talk about. And definitely some major changing with the standings. Everything, it's very tight between all 4 of us in the standings. Eric remains at the top in first place with 28 points. So Eric's, I don't know how long the streak's been going with Eric in first place, but
I think since the start of the season,
maybe,
actually.
Yeah, maybe since week 1.
Yeah, it's been trending downwards though, I'm not
trying
exactly
to make yourself
confident.
Trying to feel bad for Eric. Don't fall for it, guys. He's still in first place with 28.
Trust me, guys. He was talking about how he needed a good week this week, and I was like, "You don't need a good week. You're in first place."
Well, I've scored 3 points the last 2 weeks, so I feel like I do.
Well, I've only scored 2, so and I'm in last place. So, pardon me for not feeling sympathetic.
I'm not saying I need it more than you. I'm just saying I need it. That's all I'm saying.
All right. And all of a sudden, guys, I am creeping up in the standings with 8 points this week. That moves me from 4th to 2nd. So I'm in second place with 24 points, 4 behind Eric. Nate is in 3rd place. Now, I guess Nate technically, you're staying the same. You're staying in 3rd place right now, Nate, but you are at 23 points, just 1 point behind me, 5 points behind first place and Eric. And then Connor goes from 2nd place to 4th place now after 2 points this week with a total of 22 points, but only 6 points behind the leader, Eric, in first place. So this is what I mean when the standings are getting tight. Like, nobody's out of it. Nobody's run away with it. There's no definitive 1st or 4th place so far. So things are going to get very interesting, guys. And
I'm about to say, because there was at one point, I think you were like 15 points behind Eric or something at one point. So it was like, like you said, it definitely has tightened up.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go ahead and talk about the locks this week. And since Eric had the first pick in our draft, I'll let him talk about the 3 locks that he ended up with.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to have the first pick this week because I took Oklahoma State over Texas. I was very surprised that they were underdogs in that game, being ranked 12th, and Texas was barely ranked at 25th. I guess Texas was at home, but still, I was very surprised that Oklahoma State was an underdog there, and so I put that as my number one pick. And I saw once everybody had made their picks that Nate and Connor did the same. So if I'd put it any lower, I wouldn't have gotten it. So, and if I hadn't been first pick, I wouldn't have gotten it. So worked out for me to get that one. Texas was leading for a while, but Oklahoma State came back and got me the dub. So that was my only 3 points. Unfortunately, I went for my second pick. I went with the Chargers over the Ravens. I was debating whether to put them or Arizona over Cleveland, and I'm wishing I had switched it. But obviously, hindsight's always 2020 because the Chargers just got absolutely destroyed by the Ravens. I thought that would be a close game at least. I thought, if the Chargers weren't going to win, that it would come down to the wire or something. But man, they looked horrible in that game. And then I went with more of an aggressive pick for my third pick, going with TCU over Oklahoma. I got that wrong. Oklahoma is a team that I feel like is bound to lose at some point. I just can't see them going undefeated. So TCU had a little bit of momentum going. So I thought maybe this would be the week Oklahoma would go down. But Oklahoma, like TCU, I think came back and kind of made it a game, but it still overall wasn't a close game. So not a great week, but I'll take the 3 points. So, like Connor said, I mean, I am still in first, so I can't really complain, but gonna have to get it together soon because Zach and Nate especially have been creeping up on me. So Nate, you had the second pick this week, so talk about your games.
Yeah, so I mean, my games, this is probably the best week I've had in a little while. I took Auburn over Arkansas. I just felt that was one of my higher up picks for sure. I just felt that Arkansas was pretty overrated. They put them up in the top 10 a few weeks ago for really no reason. I don't know why they were favored in this game because they're pretty evenly matched teams. Auburn might even be more talent there. So that was one I wanted to get, and it worked out well. So I was happy with that. Arizona over Cleveland was another one where I was very surprised that they favored Cleveland, not by a whole lot, obviously, since it's a 2-pointer on our board here, but just the way the Cardinals have been playing lately and the way that Cleveland's kind of barely been getting by winning games, I was surprised that they Cardinals were the underdog. So that was an easy win for Arizona today. They blew them out by a pretty good margin. So those are 2 good points, and then my New England pick fell apart in the last few minutes there, just like the actual team did. So I lost doubly today. My favorite team lost, and I lost my perfect lockboard for the week. But that was a game I felt decently comfortable about. It wasn't one of my top picks, but I knew they had a chance at it. So tough to have that one go away, but I'm happy to just get some points on the board after the last couple of weeks. So I'll pass it over to Connor here, let him talk about his week.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I especially after last week when we had the 3 zeros, I was the one that got stuck with the third pick, unfortunately. So I realized that I really wanted, I mean, like Eric alluded to, I really wanted that Oklahoma State over Texas game, but I kind of figured that one wouldn't fall to me when I saw it was like, a higher ranked team that was an underdog. So unfortunately, I didn't get that. So I ended up going with when I was at this pick, like to put my like high 5-pointer on the list. I was between this game and LSU over Florida. I really wish I would have done the LSU over Florida, but instead I went with San Jose State over San Diego State. San Jose State had kind of had their number recently, so I figured, they would have had a good shot at, and they were at home. So I thought, if I can get like a good 5 points here, that'd be great. And it was a pretty ugly game. I didn't watch any of it, but from what Eric was saying, it was one of those games where like looked like neither team really wanted to win. Like neither team was really trying on offense at all. And unfortunately, it did go to overtime. So I had another overtime unfortunate bad beat there. And I think San Jose State threw an interception, and then San Diego State went and got a touchdown to seal it in overtime. So I didn't get that. Then after that, with my next pick, I thought, well, I was kind of joking about this on previous podcasts, if there was a way that I could go back to picking BYU, because they had gotten me like 8 points the first 2 weeks of the lockboard. And I had my chance this week. So I was like, all right, let me go back to Old Faithful BYU over Baylor. Unfortunately, Baylor pretty much destroyed them, so that wasn't a very good look. But I did manage to avoid going back-to-back zeros here. I took the Jaguars over the Dolphins, which I know, obviously, as we alluded to earlier, Zach and Eric was very happy about. So that at least got me some points to keep me, in a relevant spot here in the standings. So, and, at least I can look forward to, once again, having the number one pick next week. So I'll let Zach talk about his picks now.
Yeah, so with my first pick, I picked the Raiders to beat the Broncos in the NFL. It was a 3-pointer, and I thought, already I figured the Raiders, I think, are a better team than Denver. And also, too, it seems to be a common trend across the NFL for the last couple of years. It's like whenever a coach gets fired mid-season, that very next week, the first week with the interim, they always seem to do really good. Like they either win or come really close. And it doesn't even matter the team or who they're playing, it seems like. Typically, the rest of the season goes bad for the interim coach, but that first week that they're there, the first week after that old coach gets fired, because usually the coach getting fired, he's getting fired because he's just the team's just not responding. They're just not, they're in a bad place. And then it's a big change. You got a new coach. There's new energy. There's new blood in the team. And so that was my reasoning for Vegas. This has nothing to do with them the rest of the season. I just thought immediately after Gruden got fired, they've got a good chance to win their next game, and they did. Second pick, definitely went a little riskier on this one, picking the Lions to upset the Bengals as a 3-pointer game. It was one where I thought, maybe Cincinnati is being a little bit overrated and maybe Detroit's being a little bit underrated because of all those close, those epically long field goals that the Lions have been losing to. I'm like, the Bengals kicker hasn't been great this year. So maybe the Lions, if they're in a close game, maybe the Bengals guy will miss the field goal or, something will finally go right for the Lions. But that one, that didn't give me any stress watching the game. Like, oh, maybe, I knew right away, basically, there was no shot for the Lions to win that. So that spoiled my perfect week on the lockboard. But I can't complain because my round 3 pick, Purdue over Iowa as a 5-pointer, I got this one right. And I'll be honest, it was one that I wasn't, I wasn't super thrilled with getting. Obviously it was in my top 3, so I put it there for a reason, but I was like, I was having second thoughts about this. I was like, maybe I went a little risky because I was in last place and I need the points, but turns out that it was a great pick. My reasoning for having it was just Iowa being overrated. I thought I saw that they'd moved up to number 2 in the country in the standings, and I'm like, there's no way they're the second best team in the country. So I was like, I'm not buying that. And I figured Purdue looks like a team that could give them a close game. And I didn't know how it would turn out. I thought it'd be a close game. Purdue just stomped them though. It wasn't even close for them. So happy for Purdue. They got a big upset win for their team, beating number 2 Iowa. And Iowa comes back down to reality, I think, but that's how the lockboard went this week.
Well, they fell to number 11, so I think that's reality.
Yeah. So that covers the lockboard for this week. Next week's draft order is going to be Connor drafting first, Eric drafting second, Nate drafting third, and I'm drafting fourth again. So it got me 8 points last week. So actually my top 3 picks I got. So that, worked out for me that it didn't matter that I was in a draft in at fourth. I got actually my top 3 picks. So we'll see what happens though. This next week of lockboard, guys, we'll also have NBA games featured as well, because we are throwing the NBA into the mix. So this will be the first time that NBA games get picked, and I'm already thinking Eric might be picking some based on comments he made to me earlier about being sick of college football picks. So so let's go ahead. Yeah, okay. let's go ahead and give an update on the fantasy football league that we are in with the podcasters. So Connor, you're back for this episode. I'll let you kind of review the week and tell everybody what happened.
Yeah, well, I wish that I was back doing this on a better week for us, at least as a podcast, because unfortunately, we kind of wet the bed with our team this week. At least our team did, because honestly, I mean, some of these things I did not expect. I mean, Lamar Jackson, despite the fact that they crushed the Chargers, like only had 13.7 points. So that was, I thought that like I would have in any other scenario probably put Matthew Stafford in playing the Giants, but like I mean we still wouldn't have won. But I thought at least like the role that Lamar had been on, I thought, oh well, that's probably what we should do. So that didn't work out. Chase Edmonds, he was more so in there just because like we were getting low on running backs because Kamara was on bye. So I threw him in there, and he was kind of like he had an injury coming into the week, and I think what happened was like he had a big 40-yard run early, so he had 9 points, but I think for the second half they just didn't play him at all because like they were winning big, so they didn't feel the need in risking him. Austin Eckler severely disappointed. 9 points, was like the second highest fantasy running back coming into this week behind Derrick Henry, so that was unfortunate. Justin Jefferson only 11. Like, just everyone underperformed on the team. Kelsey even underperformed with only 18. So I don't think we had a single person besides Marvin Jones of all players actually outdo their projection. So unfortunately, we're going to end up 2-4 against. We played the unexpecteds. And also, if any of you guys in this podcast league are listening to this, like I'm not giving any of y'all shout outs anymore because the 3 weeks in a row that we lost, I followed the rule and gave the other podcast a shout out on Twitter. But then the 2 weeks that we won, no one gave us a shout out. So I ain't giving any more shout outs if any of y'all are listening to this, until you start doing it. So
Rant.
Mic drop.
Well said. Yeah, man, we gotta defend ourselves here. It can't get screwed over by these guys, and we want to win these weeks and we want to get the shout outs, and that's the whole point is to try and bring our audiences together through talking about it. Maybe not everybody's going to be sports podcasts, but at least on Twitter, or followings and stuff, being like, hey, look at this, people, look at this podcast. A bunch of us do a lot of different things, and come on, guys, not cool.
Be sure to mention that next year if anyone wants us to rejoin this league. Be like, hey, well, are y'all actually going to follow the rule this time? Like,
this. Well, anyways, we'll go. Sorry. We're gonna end the show with Around the Hoops. So, for obvious reasons, the NBA season's starting up this week. Before the season, annual tradition to give our predictions on how the standings go and the playoffs and stuff like that. We do this every year. So we're going to talk about Eastern Conference Finals, Western Conference Finals, and league-wide MVP picks. So, we're recording this as the Steelers are playing live. So, Connor, why don't you go ahead first and make your picks?
Yeah, so it kind of looks familiar, unfortunately, for some of us here. I know literally 3 of these teams that I have in these predictions were in my predictions last year. So basically for the Eastern Conference Finals, I'll start with that. I have the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks against the Brooklyn Nets. And I am going to go ahead and go with the Milwaukee Bucks in this one just because, I mean, I know Zach and Eric talked about this last week when they were doing the top 10 most interesting teams, but the whole Kyrie Irving situation, I feel like is just really going to hurt the Nets. Like, because obviously Kevin Durant is still Kevin Durant, and James Harden's a nice compliment to him, even though, all of us on the podcast agree that he's overrated, but, he's still he can put up a lot of points. So he's there. And also, they're bringing back a lot of the pieces from last year. It's just the Kyrie Irving thing to me is really going to hurt them, is really going to especially if, who knows how long it's going to last because, right now he's just not going to play at all. Like they've shut him down for the whole season until he gets vaccinated. And, if I know anything about some of these people that are anti-vaccine, then it's going to take a long time to convince him otherwise. So I mean, we'll see. Maybe losing some of that money will get him to, get the vaccine. But he's a very strange player, as Zach and Eric also alluded to. With he had the whole flat Earth thing going on there. So who knows? But I'm going to give it to the Bucks. I think Giannis, I think he finally just got over the hump. Is what happened. Like, he finally had a good performance in the playoffs. I mean, especially in that, the game clinching in game 6 of the finals with, 50 points. And he was something ridiculous, like 17 of 19 on his free throws, which is unheard of for him. So I think the Bucks are going to continue that momentum. And, they're pretty much bringing back everyone too. Like Bobby Portis is back. Chris Middleton's still there. DiVincenzo is going to be coming back from injury. So it's the same team, and it's hard to bet against the defending champs. Like, there's not really in the NFL, we always talk about Super Bowl hangovers, but I don't really feel like there's a super NBA Finals hangover. So I'm going to give it to the Bucks here in this one. Was I going to talk about my Western Conference Finals too, or are we just doing East right now?
Yeah, no, you can go ahead and do your West Finals MVP. You can do it all if you want. If you need some water or something.
No, I'll just go ahead and
okay.
I mean, I can go ahead and do that too. So we can each do that. But yeah, so for the West, I have the Los Angeles Lakers and the Denver Nuggets. Even though the Lakers, I think I really had a hard time trying to figure out, like, I knew in my mind that I wanted Denver in this spot, just because I think, especially with Jamal Murray coming back, there's definitely a lot of, the Nikola Jokic was the MVP last year. This team looks like it can do a lot of damage with Murray coming back. But the other team I really struggled to think about. I was like, well, I don't think I want to put Dallas again, just because, like, I picked them last year and they really let me down. I don't really want to pick someone like I don't want to pick Utah because they really let me down too. And I also considered Phoenix as well, but Phoenix, I think they're going to take a step back this year. We're not going to cover this, but we did our division predictions, and I actually had them finishing 3rd in the Pacific. So I think they're going to regress. So it brought me back to the Lakers once again. And, if all goes thing for them is that if they stay healthy, then I think this team can do good things. Like, I don't think that they're any sort of super elite team or anything, but I think they can at least get the job done with LeBron, especially if Anthony Davis stays healthy. I think that's the main key. Like, if Anthony Davis goes down again, then I think they're screwed, because LeBron and Russ is not a good combo. But if Anthony Davis stays healthy and everything, goes the way it should for them, then I see them winning this Western Conference Finals over the Nuggets. Just because I feel like, while the West, I think, definitely still has better teams, I don't know if it's really, in my opinion, as stacked as it has been in the past. And I think it might be a little bit easier of a path for the Lakers this year than it has been in previous seasons. So that's my predictions for Eastern and Western Conference Finals. I guess I'll let Zach do his now.
All right, sure. So, this, not a lot of diversity with our picks. Let me go back here. Yeah, Nets and Bucks is what I've got in the East. I've got the Bucks winning. I would have had the Nets winning before we knew that Kyrie was straight up denied from the team until he's vaccinated. So I've got the Bucks. I mean, they're just too good. They didn't really lose anybody. This team's, Connor he said all the great things about the Bucks. Like, if the Bucks, have a collapse, it'd be a surprise to me. They should definitely be back in the Eastern Conference Finals, considering how the East is. And then the Nets, the reason I have them making it is just purely Kevin Durant. I mean, I think he's so good that, he's just going to carry this team on his back pretty much. They have Harden and stuff, but, he's not super reliable at times. And I'm not a big fan of him, obviously, like we all aren't. But
just ask Bulls got next. He's the best player in the league, dude.
Yeah, sure. And then in the West, I wanted really badly to, to pick a team like Utah, Portland, like one of these teams to go to the Western Conference Finals. But I went with Nuggets and Suns. No Lakers in my pick, just because I just think the season's going to go really bad for the Lakers. I think LeBron, he's older, he's more likely to get hurt. Anthony Davis is always hurt. Westbrook is always hurt too, it seems like, and I just don't like that pairing between him and LeBron. I think it's going to go epically wrong, and I don't even think they're going to make the Western Conference Finals. Like, the West is too good. We saw it last year. Like, they lost to the Suns in the first round. Like, even though they're the Lakers, they could lose to a team like the Suns or the Trailblazers or the Mavericks or even the Clippers maybe, or the Warriors. Like, there's so many teams that could beat the Lakers, I think. I just don't think they make it back. I think there's too many. Yeah, they have, a lot of great players and stuff, but I just think the chemistry there is not going to go well. I think there's going to be injuries, problems with them. So I'm staying away from the Lakers, but the Nuggets, I think Jamal Murray coming back for them, if they'd have had him in last year's playoffs, I think it would have been totally different for them. And it's not the offense that's the problem with the Nuggets. It's always been the defense. I think they're going to get their defensive problems fixed enough, at least, to get them to the NBA Finals. Jokic is one of my favorite players. He's always, super talented. I think this is finally the year, like, he was the MVP last year, but I think Jokic is going to carry this team. I think Murray coming back. I think, the Nuggets have stayed mostly intact as well as a team. I think they're just, every time I watch the Nuggets, it's just impressive to me, like, how many ways they can beat you. Do I want them to win? No, not necessarily, but I think they'll make it there. And then I've got them losing to the Phoenix Suns. The Suns are tricky to predict for sure, but I just think Devin Booker is so good that, like, especially with him and Ayton, like, Ayton stepped up big. They had all those contributors stepping up for them in the playoffs. They just ran into a better Milwaukee team. But as far as the rest of the West goes, like, I definitely think times are changing, and the Suns are going to be, I think, a threat. Yeah, I don't think Chris Paul is going to be as good as he was, so I don't think, they're going to get over the top and beat Denver. I think this is where they lose. Like, Chris Paul always loses in the conference finals, except for last year when he made it. So it wouldn't be anything too surprising to see the Suns back here and lose it again. Eric, what about you with your Eastern and Western Conference picks?
Yeah, so since we all have Bucks and Nets with the Bucks winning, I'm not going to say too much there, but the only other reason why I picked them, other than the reasons you guys gave, is I'm sure Kyrie's going to get vaccinated and come back at some point. I can't really imagine that he's going to sit out the whole season. And going off of talent, I would have picked the Nets, but the other reason why I'm picking the Bucks is just because the Nets are injury prone. I mean, KD seems to get hurt a lot. James Harden seems to get hurt a lot. Kyrie, when he plays, he seems to get hurt a lot. And I just can't trust that even if Kyrie comes back, gets vaccinated and comes back, I can't trust that all three of those guys are going to stay healthy. And we saw, what happened when, the Bucks played them when the Nets were not fully healthy. And I have a feeling that that's going to be the case again. I feel like at least one of their stars is going to be hurt come playoff time or get hurt at some point during the playoffs, and Milwaukee's going to get past them again. I did consider Philadelphia if they could have moved on from Ben Simmons, but I just think that there's just too much drama going on there right now, and so I don't like Philly's chances. So I've got the Bucks. For the West, I've also got the same as Connor with the Lakers Nuggets. The Western Conference is really tricky because, Zach was just talking about how, great all of these Western Conference teams can be and stuff like that. But the problem is it's like, which Western Conference team is going to step up? Because when you look at all these teams on paper, you look at ways where you can see, man, this team could possibly make it to the Western Conference Finals. And you can say that about a lot of the teams. But you can also look at all these teams and see, well, this is why they're not going to make it to the Western Conference Finals. Like the Nuggets, like Zach talked about, they've always had issues on defense. Portland Trailblazers, same thing. They struggle on defense. With the Lakers, some of their stars have been more injury prone. The Clippers, they load manage all the time, and it seems like the chemistry is not there. With the Suns, like they made it last year, but they beat a bunch of banged up teams, to get there. So like, are they really that good? There's so many question marks. It's just so hard to predict what's going to happen. And I just think the Lakers just have too much veteran experience on this team. Like, I do wonder how they're going to do with like all of these older guys, which was the reason why I voted them as the most interesting team for last week. But I just think the Lakers as a team are too good to not get to the Western Conference Finals, even if, maybe if AD and LeBron are like both, not 100% going to playoffs like they were last year, then maybe they won't. But like, otherwise, I just don't see a way they don't get there. Now, I hope I'm wrong on this. I hope Zach is right.
me and you too, brother.
Yeah, I don't want the Lakers getting in the finals again. I don't want LeBron in the finals for the 100th time. Like, I just don't want that. But I just don't see any way that it doesn't happen, like barring injury. So that's why I just think the Lakers overall have the best team in the West. But I don't think they're going to beat the Bucks. I've got the Bucks winning in the finals. Giannis has just been playing too good, like barring a setback from him or something. Their supporting cast like really proved me wrong. I was really worried about them last year in the finals, especially with DiVincenzo out. It just seemed like they really had a lack of perimeter shooting, and it almost feels like in today's NBA you have to at least be a decent 3-point shooting team to win. But they won with their driving to the paint and forcing fouls, and their defense got really hot at times, and it was enough to win. And so I feel like they can do it again. Like Zach said, it's hard to pick against the defending champs, especially when they retain their whole team pretty much. I think PJ Tucker, who's a good defender.
What, Eric? PJ Tucker's gone. How can you discount that?
I mean, he played some good defense at times. I can give him credit for that. Obviously, like most of the games, he had 0 points, but he played some decent defense at times. So like, but it's still that's not a significant enough of a loss where it's like, oh no, the Bucks aren't going to make it out.
But Eric, like PJ Tucker, he got a ring before Russell Westbrook and James Harden and Chris Paul.
Well, and obviously don't forget that he can hit the corner 3-pointer. The Bucks didn't utilize that enough. But yeah, no, obviously that's not a significant enough of a loss. It's not like Chris Middleton left or Drew Holiday left or somebody like that. Like, they've got all their core pieces, and I just think the Bucks, I think they're going to have what it takes to win it all again. And even though like you don't really like to see teams win back to back unless it's like your favorite team, like I'd much rather still see the Bucks get it than the Lakers. So
yeah, I've also, I mean, like, this is where it gets to the point where it's like, we don't want to be saying the same things and repeating ourselves. I've also got the Bucks winning the NBA championship. It's rare, I didn't want to do it. I really wanted to pick someone else, but at the end of the day, I mean, you can't deny how good Giannis is, and like it's just hard for me to pick against the Bucks to repeat. Connor, you also have the Bucks repeating as well against the Lakers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really is just like, if we didn't have all these question marks with the Lakers and the Nets, then, I mean, especially with the Nets, like, I think I would have done what you did last year and picked the Nets to win this time over the Lakers. But really, it's just there's too many questions with them. And, like Eric was alluding to with the Lakers, like, it's a lot of older players, and, they're bound to at some point get hurt. And, it really, things like this happen at the end of the season after a long, grueling season. You make it to the finals finally, and then your body just gives out. So, I think, I'll be happy if the Bucks win again because, I'm making that money from Giannis. I'm still his agent. So, I'm going to be happy about that. But yeah, I'm going with the Bucks as well. And I mean, I'm kind of the same as Zach. Like, I didn't want to do this necessarily, but it's like I felt like I had to. Otherwise, I was just going to do something wild that probably wouldn't have happened.
Like maybe something like Hawks and Warriors finals or something like that.
Well, I am known for picking Atlanta teams to do some good stuff. So, sometimes it works out, and like the Hawks last year in that series, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Like when I picked the Falcons 2 seasons ago to win the Super Bowl. So
maybe stay away from the preseason predictions on Atlanta teams and just stick to the playoff. But let's go ahead real quickly and round out the NBA talk with talking about our MVP picks. So, like I kind of said earlier, like Eric raised a good point, and it's really scary with his injury history. But KD is going to be my MVP pick. I think it's a great time for him to be the MVP with Kyrie being out of the lineup for Brooklyn. So you don't have that, counter argument for you where it's like, hey, you're playing with two superstars. Like most all of these players are playing with another superstar on their team. Like most all these good players are. So it's like, okay, you have Harden who's really good, but I mean, we saw in the playoffs, like KD carried them in the playoffs. He was without a doubt their MVP. He was,
he carried the U.S. national team too in the Olympics. Like,
I don't expect him to be any worse than he was last year. I think, it's his second year on the team now because the first year he was with them, he was hurt. He never played. So he's got a little bit of more familiarity with Steve Nash, the whole Brooklyn team. So I just think it's, he's only won one MVP in his career. Considering how good he is, that's a little surprising. You would have thought maybe he would have won another one, but I'm gonna give him the award this year. I think it's gonna buck the trend a little bit. All these young players, getting the MVPs in all these sports leagues. I think now. I think it's time that we see like a guy like Kevin Durant win the MVP. So he's going to be my preseason prediction for MVP. Eric, what about you? Who are you taking to win MVP?
I'm going with the stat man, Luka Doncic.
Same as last year, if I'm
pretty sure
correct.
Luka last year just got off to a really slow start, and that definitely hurt him in his bid. But I just feel like this is his year. Like he was putting up good numbers as a rookie, and then as like next couple seasons and everything, like still really young, but I think he's figured out his game now, and I think he's going to start going off, and he's obviously clearly the star of the team. I mean, obviously they still have Porzingis and everything, but he's shown to be inconsistent and injury prone, and so I think it's going to be up to Luka to really carry this team to a lot of victories. If they're going to get him, it's going to be on his shoulders. And it seems like a lot of times in these last few years, they really seem to like to give the MVP to players that have the best stat lines. And I know there's other things that go into it, like the team record overall, like how much did it mean for the win? Did it really help your team and, things like that. But if the Mavericks can do better than last year, because I know the last couple of years they've been in that like 7 seed range or something like that. But if he can get them up to, maybe like a 3 seed or something, and he has an amazing stat line the whole way, I don't see how he wouldn't get it at that point. So he gets my favorite thing in the NBA, man. He gets those triple doubles.
Well, hey, he's going to be helped out in that category too, because LeBron and Russ are going to be fighting over those in LA. So
yeah, exactly. And I guess the other reason too, just compared to a lot of superstars, like I think I do like Connor's pick, but I mean KD which KD's obviously one of the best players in the whole league, but he is injury prone, and that scared me from him. Kawhi load manages, AD gets hurt all the time.
Kawhi's not going to be playing next year, so he's
Oh, well, yeah, he's injured. That's right.
Yeah.
See, it's been a while since we talked about the NBA. Obviously, I forgot about that. But, excluding him, I mean, James Harden seems to get hurt all the time. Like, a lot of these big name stars, just tend to get hurt a lot. And Giannis, he won it back to back not too long ago. So I mean, unless he does just absolutely beast, I don't see him getting it again. And Jokic got it last year. I don't see him getting it again. So I feel like Luka has a good opportunity here. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I've been getting the MVPs right has not been my strong suit in basketball predictions, but we'll see if I get it right this time. But Connor, tell us about your pick.
Yeah, so speaking of Atlanta things and me being connected, I am actually, this probably might be a little bit of a surprise, but I'm gonna go with Trae Young as being the MVP this year. I know, I definitely considered Kevin Durant. He was probably my second pick for MVP, but I did pick him last year, and all that stuff with him getting injured and whatnot happened. So that didn't work out. I also, if I had to take, I considered Giannis as well, like Eric said, but given that he won it back to back, he'd have to do something pretty extraordinary. I know we talked about this last year too, when none of us picked him. We're like, he'd have to do something pretty off the charts for him to be able to win it again, especially this recently after his back-to-back MVPs. And then with Doncic, I don't know. I just feel like every year, I know he gets the triple doubles and everything, but I don't know. I feel like this has been a trend that's been going on for a couple of years now, where everyone thinks that it's finally going to be his time to bring the Mavericks to success, and it just keeps not happening. So I don't trust him at all. But with Trae Young, I think he benefits definitely from the mantra of not playing next to another superstar. The next best player on the Hawks is probably John Collins, which he's obviously very good, but no one would consider John Collins a superstar. And then there's Clint Capella and some of the other younger pieces the Hawks have. It's still a very young team. None of these guys are big time players yet. And Trae Young, we saw it towards the end of last season and into the playoffs last season that he was the guy. And I mean, I have no doubt that if Trae Young had gone down, then this team was going to lose all the rest of their games. Which, I mean, it kind of showed a little bit that game that he didn't play. The Bucks really kind of manhandled them in that game. So Trae Young's a big part of this team, and honestly, I'm expecting, a lot of us. I don't know where you guys are thinking the Hawks are going to finish overall, but I know all of us have the Hawks winning the Southeast this year. I'm expecting a really good season out of them. I don't think last season was a fluke. They've had time. The players are still young and getting time to develop. So, and he's going to be the focal point of that. And I think, NBA MVP voters, they like stats, but they also like storylines. And I think this would be a really good storyline if the Hawks can somehow come out and, be up there fighting with the Bucks and the Nets and, potentially maybe someone like Philadelphia for those top seeds in the East. And I think they can definitely do it. So, and no doubt in my mind that Trae Young's going to be the one leading that charge. So I'm going to take Trae Young for MVP. We'll see how it goes, but I think he's got a really good shot at it if the Hawks can have a lot of success.
Alrighty, guys, that is going to wrap up this episode. Thank you for tuning in, listening, and watching to this. Covered a lot of stuff in this episode: NBA, NFL. If you're a fan of the lockboard, I bet that's entertaining every week to hear how those stories go and our reasoning behind those picks. So thanks for tuning in, and until next time, guys, remember, be clutch.
Bye.
See ya.
Peace.